Welcome to the Law Codex podcast. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Neil Campbell about what it means to be an O-shaped lawyer. Neil is the Managing Legal Counsel of Outsourcing Technology and IP at the Royal Bank of Scotland. So thank you, Neil, for joining me today.
Thanks, Rami. I'm delighted to be here, so I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I guess just before we sort of delve into the O-shaped lawyer, what it means and sort of related topics, could you just briefly introduce yourself a little bit further?
Yeah, sure. So as I say, I'm Neil Campbell. I'm a Managing Legal Counsel at the Royal Bank of Scotland, although we now kind of call ourselves NatWest Bank. As you mentioned, I'm in the Outsourcing Technology and IP team. I've been with the bank for 14 years, which is quite a long time, but for me, it's been a really interesting journey with the bank. Before that, I worked in Australia. I was with Australia's largest law firm for a number of years, and I worked in-house in an energy company. Although my traineeship was actually with a one-man firm, so I've kind of done quite a lot of different things. Probably most relevant to this is last year I joined the O-Shape Lawyer Working Group. So that's a bit of an overview of who I am.
Yeah. So why did you sort of take the decision to move from Australia to Scotland to practice?
Probably family brought me back. I was there for 6 years, and it was great. And there was nothing, I would definitely recommend travel, living abroad, broadening horizons. And it's an absolutely fantastic country, but it felt quite far away when I had a small family. And I think that was, for me, the biggest driver to come back home. And
do you think your experience in Australia kind of helped you when you moved over here?
Yes, I think so. I think you just become slightly more well-rounded as well. It's different people, it's different cultures. It's just getting exposed to those things and learn from. Absolutely, I don't regret it at all, and I would absolutely encourage everyone. It's not for everybody, but to travel, to kind of see different things, to experience it. So yeah, it was great.
Fantastic. So just to sort of transition into the O-shaped lawyer. So on the website, of the O-shaped lawyer, it says the movement started life as a small gathering of GCs passionate about driving positive change in the legal industry for those who are working in it, those who buy services from it, and those who are entering it. So could you delve a little bit deeper into what the O-shaped lawyer is and why you think change is required in the legal industry?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Rami. So let me just give a bit of overview of what it's about and I guess why we're doing it. So it was spearheaded by a lawyer, Dan Kane, who's the general counsel of NatWest Regions. And he was basically looking to recruit someone. And for him, it was about, you can see lots of technical competence, but he wanted more of an all-rounder. I think that's where the O came from, trying to think of how do you describe it. So it became this all-rounder. And he did see a kind of disconnect between the competencies that were kind of coming through and this more human-centric behaviors that he was really looking for. So he started a discussion with other, GCs, and I think they realized this was something a lot of them were seeing as well. So they kind of got together as a working group to really start to articulate what it is that they wanted to see in their teams and in their relationship with law firms, but then to do more than that, actually kind of go beyond and actually do something about it to kind of fill this gap that they were kind of seeing. So the first thing they did, I think, was develop this framework, this O-shaped framework, and there's kind of 5 O's, and I won't go through them all, but it's things like being optimistic, having an open mind. So they've all got that O in there, and they're on the O-shaped website if anybody's interested. So that was the basic framework. They then took it further and ran a questionnaire with GCs to really identify and drill down what is it you are looking for, what are the competencies, and they came up with about 12 attributes, 12 competencies that they really felt are important. And that's over and above technical skills, because there's no suggestion here that you don't need them. You absolutely do, but it's what do you need to supplement that to be a kind of successful lawyer? And it's very much focused on, I guess, the how things are delivered as much as the what. And also about making sure people are better understanding people, the sector, the business. So those 12 attributes, and they're very much kind of customer focused. So it's things like building relationships, being adaptable, creating value. So they have these kind of pillars under which the attributes sit under. So that's kind of where they got to, kind of at the end of I suppose 2019 when I just joined about 2020, and I can talk later about where it's going. But I guess the reasons why they're doing that, I mean, I think there's maybe a couple of reasons why they're sort of feeling there needs to be a change. I mean, if I look at my own experience and talking to those other in-house lawyers, technical skills kind of get you in the door. You know, that's what you need to have to answer the question. But on a day-to-day basis, you're doing so much more. You know, you're building relationships. You need to I need to collaborate with people. I need to be curious about what my clients, my sort of internal customers are doing. And I need to build trust, and I need to be able to communicate in a way that, you know, works for them. You know, not some sort of formal document which is wonderfully legalese and factually correct, but actually they get bored after the first paragraph. So there's additional kind of behaviours, competencies that really is really what kind of makes you, particularly as an in-house lawyer, when you need that broader brush of skill sets. So that's, I guess, one of the elements in what's driving the change. And I think for me, another one is, I mean, I think, you know, I guess the legal profession's changing. You know, I certainly see there's so much more about change, and the role of lawyers is changing. And I think of, you know, a couple of examples. You think of potential external factors like, you know, technology, and how that could potentially change the role of lawyers. I see things like clients, you know, wanting more for less, trying to sort of coverage and efficiency. So for me, there's quite, you know, those are kind of external factors impacting the profession. And then you've got, I guess, those internal factors, you know, things like diversity and inclusion, things like well-being. And we recognise as a profession these need to change. So I think if you look at that, I think, well, lawyers themselves need to change. And I think sort of the view is if you develop these broader attributes and these behaviours, you're probably in a better position to actually deal with those changes and those challenges, but also see them as opportunities. So that's one of the drivers that we have.
Yeah, no, I think this is a very positive initiative. And so you've sort of touched on the fact that, you know, you had GCs or sort of in-house lawyers from different sort of companies and also some firms as well. So how did it sort of play out, the dynamic, you know, having to collaborate or getting to collaborate with people from, you know, different companies and that sort of relationship element there? Has it sort of been a tension, or has it been quite seamless?
No, it hasn't. I mean, I think what's great about the O-Shape is it really has brought together people who have a passion for helping the legal profession. You know, while the core is mainly in-house lawyers, it's not just that. There are people from law firms, there's legal educators, and it's almost pulling the best of people. You know, it's a diverse group of people who, reality, some may have met, but I haven't actually met any of them face to face. This has all been over Zoom over the last 12 months, and really understanding what people's skill sets are. And I think that's the important thing. People are coming at it with different skill sets. So some people can, you know, some of the in-house lawyers can recognize the attributes, but then we have people who are more around the education. How would you actually develop a module to actually teach those attributes? We look at kind of law firms, and we bring people in there to help us recognize what would it mean for lawyers and law firms to and to sell the idea of the O-Shape into law firms. So it's using the different skill sets. So no, there's not a tension. At a wider level, I mean, to me, there's a lot of public interest in the O-Shape, and I've no doubt some people will take it, some people will leave it, but I think we've all been pretty impressed by the amount of kind of positive comments, and how people are willing to listen to it and hear what it's about and see if they can get involved.
Yeah, and we sort of touched on, you know, your goals and you know, the relationship element of having GCs from different, you know, companies and you know, lawyers from different firms, you know, all in one sort of initiative together. But in terms of, you know, the actual work you've done, can you touch on some of the projects you've worked on in terms of, you know, delivering on your goals as an initiative?
Yeah, no, sure. So it's probably a couple of things. I mean, I think the first thing we did was actually raise the profile, talk about what is the O-Shape lawyer. So a lot of time was spent, you know, whether it's writing articles, talking to people, whether it's with other in-house counsel, whether it's GCs, whether it's legal educators, or even students. So there's an element of actually just raising the bar. And, you know, we've now got a LinkedIn page, there's a website. I definitely encourage people to go and have a look at those. A couple of other things. We've had a couple of round tables with our GCs. We've got them together a couple of times to really kick the tire around. Well, what can we do? It's great to talk about these things, but actually, what actions do we want to take? And I think the point is, the working group, we don't have all the answers. It's not us saying you must do that, do this. We're trying to create the dialogue, the framework between people to kind of connect them, so we can hear what everybody has to say and start to think what's important to them. So we've run a couple of quite successful roundtables. We've done a couple of what we call work streams. So we have what we call a practice work stream, which really focuses on the relationship between in-house teams and law firms. And that's kind of a pilot where a group of in-house lawyers and lawyers from a law firm will come together and really take a step back from the day-to-day stuff, but look at the relationship and think about how can we develop that? How can we improve the relationship? What can we do? What initiatives can we come up with? Some might work, some might not. So together, there's about 6 or 7 pilots that have been running since last year, and we're starting to hear the responses from them. I guess the final work stream is around education. So one of the things is, we've talked about how there's this sort of gap between the technical skills and the kind of behaviours. Trying to work and have a dialogue with legal educators about what can we do for students coming through, for junior lawyers, at that stage of actually building in some of these O-shaped behaviours into some modules. So last year, the University of Law ran a pilot, a sort of day-long O-shaped pilot, focusing on the building relationships. And I think it was about 20, 25 trainees, junior lawyers attended that purely around the behaviour side. So that was a great thing to see, that it's actually possible to go beyond that. In theory, you need these skills to say, well, actually, we can create a course, or others can create a course and actually start to train them. So that's what we've been doing. That was last year. This year, I think it's about cementing it. Obviously continuing with those. So we take, for example, the pilot programs between law firms and in-house teams. What we want to create is a kind of longer term program that can be rolled out to many others. So that's something we're working on. We're continuing to work with universities. The idea is we're trying to build against like a firm foundation. So it's not something that was a big thing that happened in 2021 and then slightly disappears. It's something that we build on that can develop and grow. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah, and you sort of discussed the fact that you're working with universities to try to, provide this, an O-shaped sort of module in universities so that students can sort of pick up on, the soft skills that they may require at an early stage so that they've got time to develop them. So what do you think the most important soft skills that students should develop in order to become like an O-shaped lawyer? And, what sort of work can they do you think, in their own time out with the O-shaped lawyer to actually build those skills, would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rami. I guess a couple of things. First of all, obviously your technical skills that you're learning at university, absolutely keep with them. Nobody's saying push them aside. So this is all about supplementary. I guess one thing I'd say to those who are listening is have a look at the O-shaped website. So have a look at what these attributes are. So for example, things like emotional intelligence, collaboration, courage, influence. And I think the message is, you don't wait until you're a lawyer before you start to think, all right, I need to think about what emotional intelligence is. Start to think about here and now, what does it mean for you? So one thing is actually just to get an understanding. So, if you think about, like building relationships, if you want to break that down, well, one thing is about having an authentic voice, speaking with passion and being genuine and being honest. You want to build relationships. So, well, you can do that as a student, or if you're working, you start to have engaged conversations. Strike up a conversation with someone. How do you do that? Talk passionately about something. Learn to grow in confidence. Talking to someone who's more senior. We talk about, I guess, client focus, but really that's about being curious. So, have you got an open mind? As a student, are you interested in what's going around? Are you asking people questions? I mean, emotional intelligence is a big one. It's something that's definitely coming to the fore that people are talking about. I think with COVID, it's absolutely right. Things like empathy have suddenly, if not suddenly, are there, that people are, it's part of the discussion. But think about what is emotional intelligence. It's not just empathy. It's about your self-awareness. It's about self-regulation. It's about being able to control your moods. And how do you come across? So starting to think about those behaviors, and starting to take small steps to think about, how do I behave? Another is around being adaptable. So things like, one of our attributes is courage, or being brave, and it's something that we talk in our team a lot about: being brave, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, or being resilient. And for example, it's things like seeking feedback. Do you shy away from it? Do you dread it? Do you only go to someone who is going to say the best things about you? That's great, but reality is the best feedback is where it's saying, well, actually, here's where your gaps are, because that's where you can learn. So looking for those things and getting comfortable with that. Also think about failing. We can see people as this, they come through, as lawyers, they can be intelligent people, they do very well, they're perfectionists, and sometimes they don't deal well with making mistakes, and they try to hide it, they avoid it of somebody else. The reality is you learn by making mistakes. And I know this isn't saying to students, make mistakes, but by pushing yourself and building a resilience and understanding, how do you learn from that? How do you get used to that? Because you'll go through life making mistakes. That's not, and if anyone says, no, you don't, then you're not really living. You will, if you're pushing yourself, but that's how you learn. But you want to make sure you've got the right mindset to willing to take risks, so you can fail and you can learn and grow from it. So it's, in some ways, there's not a sort of hard and fast way of, there's not an easy way to do this, but I think understanding the concepts, reflecting on your own day-to-day attitude to things, talking to others, think about how you thinking about those behaviors is probably my advice. So, I don't know what you think of that, Rami, for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So not making mistakes on purpose, but when you do happen to make a mistake, make the most of it and learn all you can from it, I guess, is what I took from that. So in terms of, so you work for RBS or NatWest now. So how do you think sort of places of employment have reacted to the O-shaped lawyer? Have they generally been supportive, or is it something that they're sort of wary of? And how have the sort of wider legal profession reacted to this initiative?
I think it's been incredibly positive. When you think it only started at the end of 2019, it's really last year it kicked off, and when we've got a LinkedIn page, we've got 1,000 people. It's the O-shape is now something that is talked about as a concept, and that's great considering it. It's only been around just over a year. So I think it's touched a chord with people. It's not for everyone, absolutely, and that's fine. And it's not saying this is the one way, and the only way. But I think what's quite good, it's come at a time where, with COVID, with people having to talk about empathy and resilience, it's giving people a bit of a language, and I think that's what's resonated with people, and it's helped people think, actually, you're right. I'm not just a technical specialist. That's not all I do. Of course, I have to interact. It's all about supporting our customers. It's all about working together, solving issues, and recognizing the behavior. So I'm, as a member of the working group, I think it's been great, the response. And what is good is it's bringing together people who have got some really good ideas. All we're doing is sort of creating that kind of network. So it's great. I mean, there's a long way to go, put it that way. But 2020 was from my perspective was I'm quite proud of the work that's been done.
Fantastic. And do you know what your plans are for 2021 as an organization? Have you got anything sort of settled now, or is it a work in progress?
I mean, it's still, I guess it's sort of work in progress. I mean, as a team, we very much focus on teamship and our culture. I think this year we're focusing on things like our customers and how we can understand our customers and show the value of our customers. Because I think the one thing about the O-shape, it's ultimately about, it's not although it's about the O-shaped lawyer, it's ultimately not about who uses the services, and the customers. It's very much customer driven, and how lawyers support their customers and are part of that. And as a team, looking at our customers and thinking, how do we measure ourselves? How do we value? How do they value us? How do they get the best out of us? So that's something we're certainly looking at, and it's something the O-shape is also. It's one of those things that we're sort of thinking. How do we take that forward? Because I think talking to a number of GCs, it's not an easy answer. That's what makes it challenging, but it's something that particularly in-house lawyers and wider are being asked. How do you justify yourself? How does a company measure the value its in-house legal team provide? It's maybe an uncomfortable question, but it's something that we should be able to answer. So that's something that we're certainly looking at.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a positive note to end this discussion on. So thank you for joining me, Neil, and discussing the O-shaped lawyer, the work you engage in, your goals as an organisation. And I'll make sure to include a link to the website, to the podcast as well. So thank you for joining me. It's been an honour.
Well, thank you, Rami. Thank you for inviting me. That's been great.